Hey, what's up, guys? Rave Dad here. Want to talk about a very controversial topic today, and that is should you bring your kids to a rave and or festival? There are a million different opinions on this from a million different people. I want to give you my take and what are the major factors before you make that decision. There are really three. The first one is your kids, right? Like that's self explanatory, but your kids is the most important factor. You know your kids better than anyone else, right? So let's think about this. If you're going into a big rave or an outdoor festival, 99% chance strollers not going to be allowed in, right? So you have to think that your kid is going to be on their feet or you are going to be carrying them for several hours, potentially over multiple days, right? So if you know your kid is not the type that can stay on their own 2 feet or is going to be super needy in terms of being picked up and carried around, it's probably not the best idea, right? Like you got to understand your kids in this situation. The second thing is food options, right? Kids are picky eaters, right? I know my kid is about the pickiest eater in the world. So you got to understand, research your food options in advance. Most security at festivals, if you're bringing in like small snacks for kids, they're probably not going to give you a lot of grief about it. But you have to understand that there's really not going to be outside food allowed. And that's kind of like the blanket statement for most of these. So don't be mad if they take it away before you go in. And now you're stuck buying additional meals for your kids, right? Water obviously is going to be a big one, right? You got to make sure the kids stay hydrated through the whole time, right? Make sure you've got all kind of your provisions. That's the next piece about knowing your kids, right? There are a couple of things you absolutely have to have. One, you have to make sure they're getting regular water, right? Like just like any other festival, you're outside, it's going to be hot. Make sure they're drinking plenty of water. Two, sunscreen, right? You do not want your kids to get sunburned. That is a miserable experience for you, miserable experience for them. Do not allow them to do that. The third thing, and I cannot stress this one enough, is make sure they have proper ear protection. If you're curious about what to get, earplugs may not fit really well in a kid's ears, those little styrofoam ones. So I don't necessarily recommend using those. What I would recommend getting are something you would use for like a shooting range. You can usually pick those up at pretty much any sporting goods store or Amazon, etc. Right? They're kind of the big over-the-ear headphone ones. That is the better option for ear protection for kids at a rave or festival. All right. So you've determined, hey, my kid is cool to do this. They meet all of the criteria I need them to meet. I understand what's in store for them. The next thing is, it's you, right? You're responsible for your kid's safety, right? You are 100% responsible. Not the staff, not the artist, not the festival, not the other people attending the festival. It is on you, right? So if you are going to be taking whatever substances a lot of people take at festivals, it may not be the best idea to have your kids there. I mean, you shouldn't be doing it in front of your kids anyway, but just as an extra step, right, you have to make sure that you're going to be responsible for your kids. The next thing is be prepared to bail out of the festival early. Kids get tired, kids get cranky. You do not want to have to deal with all of that. Just make sure you know you may have the situation where you have to take off, right? Don't hold it against the kid. It's a kid, right? Like they're putting in a awkward position, awkward situation. Be cool, but just be prepared to bail out early. The third major factor is the event or festival, rave, etc. Itself, right? In most cases, the two things people say, well, the reasons you shouldn't bring your kids is one, there's a bunch of people walking around with barely any clothes on. Honestly, I live in Florida. If you go to the beach in Florida, you're not going to see anything worse, right? So if you ever taken your kids to the beach in the summer, especially in Florida or California, right, they've probably seen it all already. In all honesty, I think it's good to expose kids to all forms of self-expression like that. I don't necessarily think it's a big deal. I think we make a way too big deal out of what people are wearing anyway. That's not really the issue. The second one is drugs, right? We understand festivals, raves are tend to be a drug heavy environment, right? For the most part, the people at the festival, if they see your kids, will be cool. But you have to understand that there are going to be people around your kids who are severely intoxicated, whether that be ketamine or coke or hallucinogens or weed or alcohol, right? You have to understand you are voluntarily putting your kid in that environment around people where I would say at least half, if not more, maybe 3/4 of those people are not going to be sober, right? So understand that these are contributing factors. I personally would say if you do not feel like your kid is ready, don't do it, right? If you can avoid it, I would probably avoid it. I understand, though, it is good to expose your kids to all different types of experiences when they're young. So let's think about this, right? Remember, three big factors. One is your kid. Do you have all the things necessary for them to have a good time, for them to be prepared, and for them to be safe? Remember, sunscreen, water, ear protection. Do not go into a festival with your kids without those three things. It will be a miserable experience. You do not want to do that, right? The next piece, you yourself. Are you prepared to parent while you're in this festival, right? I understand that everyone's there to have a good time, but you are still the parent. You have to still be responsible for you and your kid's safety. Make sure that you're willing to take on that task, right? Then the last piece is the event. Understand some festivals may be a bit more kid friendly than others. Some may not. Do your research, do your homework before you prepare to take your kids. All right, guys. So to wrap up real quick, last piece again. Can you bring your kids to a rave or festival? Absolutely. Just make sure you're prepared. Make sure you do what you need to do. Make sure you understand the situation you're walking into. Again, if you can avoid it, I recommend it. But by all means, it is not a hard, fast no for me at all. So there you go. That's what you need to know. Rave Dad is here to answer your questions. If you got anything else you want me to talk about, feel free to put it down in the comments. Again, trying to build the channel from the ground up. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you got anything, you can find me at I Am Rave Dad on all the socials, SoundCloud, Twitter, Facebook, Insta, etc. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to answer any questions or essentially create a whole video about it if it's something that I feel needs to be shared. Again, Rave Dad, love all you guys. Take care.